Have you thought of what to do with those vegetables that you successfully planted and grew and harvested last year, and then you even successfully stored them in your pantry all through the winter, and you might have helped yourself to some of them but have quite a bit left over, and already it's spring and it's time to plant that garden again and grow more fresh vegetables for this year? Well, I'm going to share with you a trick that I use with a number of different vegetables, but specifically today we're going to use the sweet potatoes that we harvested last year in the garden. You might have seen that video with us. This superfood is fantastic and I don't want any of it to go to waste. So in the next few minutes, stay with us as we preserve this and make it usable in all kinds of different recipes in the days to come between now and when we harvest this year's crop near Thanksgiving again of this year. Stay with us. All right, you can do this with a lot of the different root vegetables that you might have down in the cellar or pantry from the winter, but let me show you through specifically on sweet potatoes. These have fared well, and I can tell because they're nice and solid, they don't feel hollow and dried out. You'll notice the ones that have actually lost enough moisture that they're not usable for this. And yes, the bugs have gotten their way in. Let me show you a little picture of that right here, where the bugs have made their way into the inside just in a few of these, but they haven't done a whole lot of damage, and I can easily get that off with a paring knife. There are parts that are a little bit too dry, like this, that's a little shrivelly. I won't use that area, and I'll cut off any of these extra roots. What we're going to do is just take these all, put them in a nice colander. We're going to rinse them really well and then peel them and get all of the little parts off, like the little buglet holes, and anything that's not usable, we'll go ahead and pare that off nicely. And then we'll take and slice these super thin. The thinner the better, but anything less than about 1/4 of an inch to 1/8 of an inch. You'll be amazed at how quickly they are going to dehydrate in the dehydrator. All right, we've got our first one cut up, and before we go to this next step, let me just explain something about the next part of this process. It's up for great debate whether these should be blanched before they are dehydrated, or if it's safe for you to just dehydrate them completely raw. I am of the thinking that raw is just fine. It seems to hold the nutrients better. It seems to make a crisper dehydrated product. But to do that, the only thing that I want to just tell you that I do is I take a nice clean bowl and I put it with some filtered water in it and a couple of tablespoons of lemon juice. If I had a real fresh lemon right now, I would just squeeze fresh lemon into it, but I don't, and this lemon juice from the store will work just fine. When I have thrown all of these into that lemon juice and water mixture, I will spread them out on the dehydrator's layers, and surprisingly these go very, very quickly from there. We've set it for 8 hours, though it probably will not even take that long. Usually I'm going to say 4 hours at 160 in my dehydrator does a great job. But if you've cut them a little thicker or they happen to be containing more moisture, I don't know your exact situation, so just play it by ear. But somewhere between 4 and 8 hours, set. I usually at 160 for the first couple of hours, and then I turn it down to about 120 or 130 and let it go for the rest of the time. But once it's finished, you're going to notice a product that comes out something like this. I did these just this morning, and you want them literally, they'll sound hollow, they sound very dry, and they are completely crispy. Literally, there is no moisture left in these. If you were to have any give in them at all, it's not long enough. You need them absolutely cracker dry. So once you've got them to that stage, we're ready to move on to the next, which is simply to pulverize them in the blender. Now, in the future, you're going to see me go completely without electric appliances. All right, as long as you got every bit of moisture out of that while you were dehydrating it, you should have fantastically fine powder with no chunks. If it has chunks, it's probably because you didn't get quite all that moisture out. And at that point, to troubleshoot, I'd probably spread it out on a baking sheet, put it in the oven for a little while. We've done a great job though here today. It has gotten entirely dry, and so I'm just gonna tap all of that off in there and go ahead and add it to the rest of what I made just earlier. So what I do is put it in a nice sealed container and I put some oxygen absorbers, moisture absorbers in there, and that is all I need to do. So there you have just wonderful sweet potato powder. Remember, you can do this with any of those garden vegetables that are under the ground, like beets and turnips, parsnips, your carrots, any that you have left over from last year that you haven't used up and it's time for the new garden. Go ahead and make this happen with those. It's so easy. They dehydrate so quickly and so well. I'm going to store this with some oxygen absorbers, moisture absorbers, probably put it in this airtight jar in the freezer until I need it. And it reconstitutes beautifully, so I can put it in any kind of recipe that calls for it, and I'll post some down below, so make sure you check those out. But I can reconstitute this at about 1/4 of a cup of this to about 1 cup of water. Remember that. About, give or take, 1/4 cup of this to 1 cup of water will reconstitute it beautifully into nice, smooth sweet potato. Now, you can do this with the other vegetables. Each one of them will be slightly different, but have fun with it. Share this video with somebody else who would enjoy it. Perhaps you haven't tried it before, but go out and look up the recipes for all that you can do with this. You can make sweet potato pie, sweet potato pancakes, and breads, and muffins. You can throw this in your morning smoothies. For those of you who aren't sweet potato fans in the first place, just go ahead and sprinkle a little of this in your smoothies and all kinds of recipes. You won't even know it's there, and you'll get all that wonderful superfood nutrition from it. Okay, we'll see you on the next video. Until then, go out and be a blessing to someone today. In the Holy Word of God, there's this book of Matthew that has a wonderful parable in chapter 13, verse 31, and it's Jesus that's speaking. He put another parable before them saying this: "The kingdom of heaven is like a tiny grain of mustard seed that a man took out and sowed in his field. It's the smallest of all the seeds, but when it has grown up, it's larger than all the garden plants and becomes even like a tree, so that even the birds of the air come and make their nests in it." Isn't that a beautiful mystery? Go spread the word.